Good afternoon. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Okay, is that what he said? Good afternoon. We'd love to start the hearing now. Welcome. Happens to be April 30th, 2024. We're having our second public hearing, well, actually our third public hearing, though it happens to be at the Sister City Hall, for our comprehensive plan update. It's 2020 through 2040. So thank you all for joining us. We're called the meeting to order, and this is our agenda is opening up the public hearing, or maybe reconvening. Yes, we're reconvening and if you would like to testify and you're in the room, please fill out a blue sheet for us. And then if you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand later. Nicole.
Excellent. Thank you, commissioners. For the record, Nicole Mardell, Senior Planner with Deschutes County Community Development. Wanted to note that this is the third time that the board has heard this presentation, but wanted to just give a full context for those in the audience. So as the chair mentioned, this is our third and last scheduled hearing for the comprehensive plan update for Deschutes County. Our project website, in case you haven't already seen it, is deschutes.org/2040, and you'll click on the hearing page to see the full hearing record, all of the project documents and public comments received to date. This is a hybrid hearing, so those that are in person, if you'd like to testify, please fill out the blue sign-up sheet at the side of the room, and you can give it to me. That way we can have a record of you testifying and add you to our notification list. And before starting to your testimony today, please provide your first and last name and your mailing address, and please do speak into the microphone so virtual attendees can hear you. We have a soft 3-minute limit per party, but because we are a smaller group today, the chair can let you know if you have additional time to testify. For those that are participating remotely, to testify remotely, you must be using Zoom. Chair Adair will request that all Zoom participants use the raised hand feature to notify the commission that you'd like to testify. So you can use the raise hand button at the left-hand corner on your screen, or if you're dialing in, it's *9. So with that, I wanted to provide a little bit of grounding of the purpose of the comprehensive plan for Deschutes County. So a comprehensive plan is essentially a local government's expression of community values. It's our guiding policy framework for planning, land use, development growth, and resource protection in the rural county. So this is a chance for the Board of County Commissioners and community members to look holistically at a variety of different topics facing the county, including things like housing, natural resources, recreation, use of farmland, forest land, etc., and essentially set a future framework for decision-making on how you'd like to see the county make choices in that arena for the next 20 years. Quite a bit of the document relates to legal requirements. So being in the state of Oregon, we have a statewide planning program that prescribes quite a bit of requirements for counties to follow. For instance, what uses can be allowed on farmland. So there are quite a few items in the comprehensive plan that directly relate to state law and our obligations to comply. But in the areas where the county does have discretion, a lot of the plan is based on community input, which is excellent to see folks here today to add your voices to this process as well. The third element of the comprehensive plan is data and analysis. We've been working with a consultant, MIG, based out of Portland, who's provided quite a bit of trends, projections, background technical information to help inform some of the decision-making for the comprehensive plan. What happens with the comprehensive plan following adoption is that it's utilized for things like, criteria for reviewing zoning code amendments, plan amendment zone changes, and if there's consideration for potentially expanding additional county programs, for instance, maybe a dark skies program, the comprehensive plan can help inform those choices. So far to date, we've had quite a bit of engagement throughout this process and looking forward to, again, hearing more voices today. But wanted to note that throughout our 2-year process of drafting this document, we heard from quite a few folks from all across the county in a variety of different kind of settings. We conducted small group meetings, we had open houses, online meetings and surveys, and of course had some social media blasts as well. So through that, a lot of the feedback that we received, there were a lot of very diverse perspectives in Deschutes County. So the plan that we put together that was initially released in August of this year was intended to find the middle
Last
ground.
year,
I'm sorry.
August of last year,
Thank you.
remember?
Yes, August
Because
of,
we're almost May now.
exactly, August of 2023. I apologize.
Yeah.
So essentially the plan was trying to find a middle ground on a lot of these perspectives and really try to represent the community holistically. So since that draft document was released in August, our planning commission conducted a pretty extensive review and very gracious to the planning commission on their work on this. The group had 3 public hearings and 132 written comments. And some of the major themes are shown here, but just to note a few of them, lots of concern about rezoning of farmland, protection of wildlife, dark skies, water, concern about protection of private property rights, and some discussion of destination resorts as well. We also heard from several agencies, from COID, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the Deschutes Historical Society, and City of Bend, and several of those groups provided some technical or terminology-based edits that we directly incorporated into the document in terms of best practices. The Planning Commission ultimately recommended approval of the draft document, subject to a variety of revisions. I've printed out a set of those revisions on the side of the room, and it's also available on our website and in today's meeting packet. But a few items they've asked me to highlight today were a couple items that warranted a lot of discussion, or maybe where the group felt split on the decision. So just noting a few of those. There was a lot of discussion about balancing any new regulation with incentives. So on the topic of, in particular, resource protection, things like wildlife protection, the group felt that the use of incentives for voluntary mechanisms for private property owners to utilize could be really valuable, and asked the board to kind of, consider use of incentives and balancing that with regulations. There was a lot of discussion about rezoning of farmland and interest from the group of maybe establishing a new zoning category. So we have a lot of exclusive farm use zoned land in Deschutes County that may not have the proper conditions to be commercially viable. So there was discussion about really wanting to preserve some of the benefits of EFU zoned land, things like large parcel size, open space, preserving those excellent benefits while still allowing for housing. So maybe it would be something like a high desert 40 zone where you have a 40-acre minimum. That was a topic of discussion. But the Planning Commission also wanted to note to the commissioners that if that path were of interest, to really make sure that there was a lot of community engagement around that topic to really dig into what that new zone could look like. There was also discussion and a split vote about a policy relating to trails. So we had a policy relating to collaboration among recreation agencies on trail planning. And the Planning Commission voted to also note collaboration with property owners, in particular when a trail would be planned adjacent to a farm or forestry operation. There was some concern that a trail might impact those operations negatively. So a desire to change that policy to also include property coordination as well, and that was a split vote. There was also quite a bit of discussion about the deletion of a policy. So this was a new policy that was aimed at adding additional considerations of impacts to water quality and quantity relating to destination resorts and other large-scale development. And the Planning Commission ultimately voted 3-2 to remove that policy. And those in favor of removing it felt that the county had limited jurisdiction on reviewing water use or regulating water use, and that there are already quite a few requirements in place related to destination resorts. With that, now we're at the Board of County Commissioners review process. As Commissioner Adair noted, we're on our 3rd of 3 scheduled hearings. So to date in this board process, we've received 3 agency comments from Bend Parks and Rec, Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, and the City of Bend just late last week. And we've received 156 public comments, so close to 280 or so total. There were quite a few topics raised in these comments, but just wanted to note some of the ones that we saw very frequently. Lots of discussion on water planning and management, rezoning of farmland, wildlife protections, again, the concern about protection of private property rights. And there's also some discussion raising concern about a potential Blackbeat Ranch to Sisters Trail. That although it's not specifically mentioned in this plan, there is a desire to maybe incorporate some of those concerns into some of the recreation policies. In addition to that, there was quite a few information in the record noting very specific red lines or noting specific issues. So of course, the board will review all of those comments in detail, but just wanted to highlight some of those items there. With that, wanted to note, we did have one public commenter request for any suggested revisions raised by the board for that to be placed into the record. So Commissioner Chang and I have been working, Commissioner Chang had raised some concerns in our initial meeting. So coordinated with Commissioner Chang and actually added all those red lines into the record as of this morning. So there was also a desire from legal, if the other two commissioners had revisions that you wanted to raise, that we follow that same process. So with that, wanted to provide a staff recommendation for the next step following today's hearing, which would be to keep the written record open for 30 days or potentially longer, but that 30 days would be May 30th. And to ensure that we have commissioner comments, those red lines into the record by day 14, so May 14th, to allow for adequate time for other commenters to review and respond to those in the
For the
record.
commissioners, we have to, yes, we have May 14th as our deadline then.
Yes.
And Nicole, I forgot to introduce us.
Oh, yes, please do.
So I should, okay, I'm Commissioner Patty Adair, and I actually live in Sisters Country. Commissioner DeBonne?
Commissioner Tony DeBonne, Southern Deschutes County resident.
Commissioner Phil Chang, I've done a lot of work here in Sisters.
And our administrator.
I'm Nick Leback, the county administrator, and it's really great to see all of you that I've worked with for 15 plus years since I've been with the county in different capacities. So welcome.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, thank you.
So, yeah, I guess question amongst us. So, staff recommendation for keeping the record open. When are we going to make that decision? Is that kind of the end of today, I guess?
Correct, that would be
Third.
exactly
That'd be
following
close
public
enough today.
testimony. Yes, so following public testimony, I'll return up to the dais and we can talk in more detail about next steps
Is,
or the podium.
is it on like May 14th at 4 p.m. or do you,
Yeah, we'll finish up with.
I mean, I just wanted to write it
Ty-
down.
Yes, typically we use 4 p.m. as our deadline.
Okay, great. Thank you
Great,
so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for attending our public hearing. And if you joined us late, please fill out a blue form. The first person I have to call to testify is Tony Oliver. And thank you, Tony, for joining us.
Thank you for having the meeting. My name is Tony Oliver. I live at 550 Northwest 74th Street in Redmond, Oregon. It's not in the city, it's in between Sisters and Redmond. You wanted something else? Oh, okay.
We have
that's fine.
everything filled out on.
Oh, okay,
You're
fine.
good.
All right. Well, I did want to commend the planners for some of the work that was done, because one of the things I was very concerned about in the plan was the softness of the ability to change between farmland and other uses. And in here, it said that there would be incentives. So I'm hoping those types of incentives would be things that could allow them to keep their farmland, for instance, sustainable farming, where they could get fences to fence off so they could move their cattle around, and also uses of different grasses and things like this. So they could improve the farm. We're headed towards a food desert in our country, and we really need that ability to produce food in this area. The other thing I would like to see is a moratorium on destination resorts. And I know that you said that we aren't concerned, you can't be concerned on the water because you don't have jurisdiction over it. But we know that putting in a resort would result in a huge amount of water going out of our system. And I was looking up records. It shows that for 4 acres of water are evaporated for 1 acre of irrigated land per year on a golf course. So we're losing a lot of water that way. The other thing is, I'm really concerned that I did not see a strong point about rezoning. When I first bought my land, it was EFU and now it's RR10. And the problem with RR10 is on my street is several 2-acre plots, RR10. Then there's one that's not about a quarter mile away, 64 acres, RR10. And that RR10 allowed a 6-acre plot to put a sports racetrack on it because of what's allowed for RR10. Now, down the street on one of those 2-acre lots is somebody building a sports, I don't know what you call them exactly.
Motocross?
Yeah, motocross. There we go. Thank you. And if they go to the county, they're going to say there's a precedent for this. So our neighborhood is being changed, not in ways that we like. So that's something to consider, that we know, why is 64 acres RR10 with certain specific limitations, and 6 acres is RR10 and 2 acres is RR10. So it's really devastating, and we need to really, and then also to review what can be placed on RR10 parcels. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Oh,
I just have a question, Tony. Your property was originally EFU, but did you ask to change it?
no,
You didn't ask to change?
no. They just made changes in our area.
Okay.
So that was 24 years ago
24 years ago, okay.
when I
Thank-
got it.
Thank you for clarifying that. I just was wondering.
I mean, I don't know when it was changed. I just only tell you when I bought the property.
Okay, you bought it at EFU,
Yes,
and then it somehow now is
Yes.
RR10.
yes, that's why I worked so hard, and I didn't realize that until a couple years ago it was RR10, because I've worked really hard to follow all the rules, and I had the water people out, and I have a certain area that I'm allowed to irrigate and a certain I'm not. So I've tried to be really respectful of that. And then that's why I got so hit on the head with this RR10 and the motocross.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
testimony.
Tony, I would also like to
I'm
add,
sorry, my apologies.
oh, no, I did, you can listen from your seat or you can listen from there. I'd like to add that, if someone has said that the county and the Board of Commissioners does not have authority over water, we need to understand that through the destination resort approval criteria, there is some jurisdiction over water decisions. We specifically right now, we have a criteria that says that destination resort application should not result in a net loss of fish and wildlife habitat. And so if you can demonstrate that you're drawing substantial amounts of groundwater, and that is impacting springs or cold water discharge into streams, then that could be argued to be having fish and wildlife habitat impacts.
Okay.
So that's something that we need to hash out and debate on the Board of Commissioners when we see a destination resort proposal. But just to clarify for you that is a point to argue
Thank you.
on destination resorts in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the clarification.
Oh, thank you. Where's the timer at? It is supposed to be. Okay, all right. Do you mind? Or I can get my phone out, but it says here that we aren't supposed to have our phones on the dais. So, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Oh,
Mine in airline mode.
oh, good.
Airplane mode.
Okay, Bruce Bowen?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. First, it isn't part of my little prepared thing here, but I would like to thank the staff for their extremely hard work. I know that this is a big job and has, I'm sure, many masters. And having been in that situation myself on occasion, I do appreciate that. My first impression is that the plan is too long and at times too technical. It's not always clear what the underlying assumptions or goals are. There are very nice categories which disappeared here. But it is not always clear to me. My impression is the document really does not provide a visionary leadership. It is, to me, it seems strongly in support of the status quo. I think that's a hard thing to overcome in a large bureaucratic organization like the county has become in the 24 years we've lived here. Quite a difference. I remember when Nick was a planner, I believe. Anyway, I think the plan does not adequately address the problems associated with the proliferation of destination resorts. I think many of which are simply rural subdivisions in disguise. And I think that needs to be fleshed out much better in terms of what the expectations are in the county. I think the plan does not adequately indicate protection for the natural resources, including but not limited to wildlife habitat. I mean, there are a lot of things that can be done. I mean, ODOT is I think, seriously in the process of doing undercrossings. I think they've decided to do that. I'm sure there are things the county could be doing as well. Wildlife habitat is not just an acre here and an acre here. The biologists tell us that there has to be contiguous pieces. 3 scattered places with good habitat is not nearly as good if they aren't connected. If there's a subdivision in between or a limited access highway. I don't think there's adequate protection for agricultural lands and farms and ranches. And especially water. I think it's going to be one of the most important things in the future with climate change. Water is going to be extremely important and how it's distributed. I think it's time for I got here first basis of current water rules to change. And I know the county really can't change that. That's state law, but this is not an appropriate way. We in the emergency room, we don't say, well, you got here first, so I will deal with your cold rather than this person here is having a heart attack. I mean, water is going to be as critical as the emergency room one of these days. I was very disappointed, I must add, about the rejection of the text amendment that was going to better define what destination resorts within the 24 air mile range. Again, that's probably not appropriate for the plan. I think that part of the problem is ad hoc or spot zoning. And I think that's an incredibly difficult problem to deal with. There's always some reason to take something ad hoc without doing it. So thank you for the opportunity to express my views.
Thank you, Bruce, for coming today.
Thank you.
Eva Eagle? Oh, thank you very much. Very good job, Stephen. You figured this system out. Eva, good afternoon.
My name's Eva Eagle, and I live northeast of Sisters. And I thank you for the chance to comment on the plan and to give us a chance to do it right here in Sisters. Very nice not to have to drive to Bend for an evening meeting to do this. I live on a 40-acre parcel east of town that's designated EFU and wildlife overlay. And our neighbors, however, span the diversity of what the county offers. We've got a 500-acre ranch to our east, BLM to the north, a rural subdivision on the west, but Aspen Lakes on the south. And it's RR10, and I can totally identify with the problems with the RR10 designation where this particular subdivision, actually, there aren't any 10-acre lots. They're actually much smaller, and all kinds of strange things can happen, and it doesn't seem to matter. So I really can echo the comments we've heard before. We love our little piece of heaven. It's, we've been there for more than 2 decades. But in the time we've lived there, we've experienced a real decline in our local environment that I think is partially maybe can't be helped, but I think the county could be doing something to help us. One problem is construction of new homes wherever possible. I mean, these rural subdivisions that look great when they're only 10% settled don't look so great when they start to get full. So you have big pressure on the services and the roads. And no doubt related to that, we've got our local wildlife population has really declined. Not just mule deer, which have crashed, but everything, all the small mammals, big mammals, even the bird variety, which I track pretty well. It's pretty sad. But worst of all, the water supplies are in trouble. Quite a few residents, including us, have had to deepen or drill new wells, haul water to a cistern, as our next door neighbor is doing. It's a really different, it's terrifying when you think that because the water table is being drawn down, that your home that you've invested a lot in may be worth nothing when you need to sell it. When I looked at the comprehensive plan, I saw a document that I think shrinks from taking on the issues that have really become important to me. I think we need a document that leads us to a better future. So I've 3 particular suggestions. One, we need to protect our agricultural and forest land much better with it. Spot zoning, which a couple people have mentioned, huge problem, or wholesale rezoning of open space so that you can get a category that allows you to build a lot more. We see a lot of pressure for that. And I would ask, I think the plan should really emphasize the value of forest land and agricultural land that maybe we don't know how to use it now, but in the future with different techniques, we will be able to. I think we need better protection for the environment. The wildlife inventory, I don't understand why the wildlife inventory wasn't adopted, not even for mule deer. It beggars the imagination that this is not part of the deal. But most important, I think water quality is a thing that we need to be addressing better, and I don't see it here as part of the approval process for any large development. Instead of addressing those things, what I see is now we're specifying in the plan that destination resorts are a key economic development strategy for Deschutes County. Really? 20 or 30 years ago was pretty important. That might have been true, but we're one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. We don't need destination resorts in order to improve our economy, and they don't offer great jobs. So I think that's really a misstatement. I think we should instead be focusing on preserving what's made this a really desirable place to live, which is, yes, we have a nice churning little economy, it's doing real well, but we've got all this open space that most of us moved here to get, and we have a lot of great agriculture, and I think we'll have more than ever because people are learning how to use the drier soils and learning how to farm with less intensive use of water. So I hope you'll think about strengthening the protection for land, water, and wildlife as you finalize the plan. I feel like, I mean, I appreciate that there's been a ton of work here and there's lots of good stuff, but I think those 3 really important areas need a much better future to be provided for 2040. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you for testifying. And it looks like Jim, is it Thrower?
Thank you. I appreciate you all coming here today and listening to us. I'm sure it's not your favorite thing to do.
Actually,
We
it
do.
is.
Yeah, this is what we do.
We talk to people all the time, and it's really it's actually outstanding that the community came today because you're the reason why we're sitting here.
Anyway, I live locally, a few miles north of town here, and I have comments on a couple things. First is the water. One of the things I'd like you as commissioners to look at and keep in the front of your minds as you make decisions over the next couple of years. We live in a desert. The water resources are limited and finite. And what's going to happen with the climate in the next 10 or 20 years, it's probably get drier, and there'll be a greater demand for water from agricultural and population growth. One of the things you'll run into, I'm sure, in 20 years, is you'll have ranchers, farmers saying, there's not enough water for me to grow crops for my cattle or to bring to market. And they're going to say, what in the world were people thinking of when we were building artificial lakes and golf courses that take up millions of gallons of water? Agriculture is a basis of much of Deschutes County. And we have to look at really preserving that. And I'd say pay attention to those constituents in the long term and what their needs are going to be. There are small farmers in the area that are already experiencing dry wells. And they have a marginal existence anyway. They can't afford $40,000 or $50,000 to drill a new well. That's going to put them over the top. So they're going to wind up wanting to divide their property and sell it off if they can't exist. Anyway, so again, keep in mind as commissioners, we live in a desert, water is finite. Let's take care of this on the long run. The second issue I have has to do specifically with mule deer. In your plan, it indicates that herds have been decreasing by 10% a year for the past 20 or 30 years. And that's right in line with what the ODFW says. Mule deer are not a resilient species. They don't adapt well to change, unlike something like elk, which can move around and don't have a lot of problems. There's evidence that mule deer are biologically and or genetically adapted to certain migration patterns. And if these patterns are disrupted by development, they go into the winter with less fat, and the reproductive capacity decreases because the fawns do not survive as well over the winter. Let's see. To slow or height the decline of these species, you're going to have to plan development in such a way that it doesn't interrupt these patterns. I read a article, research study on migration patterns that was really in Wyoming. It was very nicely done. In that state, the mule deer all winter in a particular area down in a desert. And they collared a bunch of the mule deer, and they found two different groups. There was one group that stayed in the desert all year round, and another group that migrated 400 to 600 miles up into Idaho and Yellowstone Park. You'd think that the ones that stayed still in the same place would be doing better. Well, that's not the case. What happens is the ones that migrated, even with all the dangers and the thing, they got better feed because they followed the green up as the bushes and the grass got better in the mountains. They came back from a 600-mile journey with more fat. They had better survival rates among the fawns and better survival rate over the winter. So it's important not just to look at how many deer you have, but also what their pattern is going to be. And in Wyoming, one of the things that the game department did was they coordinated with ranchers and made some adjustments so that the deer could go through particular ranches without obstructions and do their migration. And I don't know if that's something we can do here or not, but you can't expect these deer to suddenly change their migratory pattern without having a very deleterious effect on their reproductive rate and their survival. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, I think we have one, two more. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Okay. Paul? Judge Lipscomb?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak again to this group. I'm here on behalf of the Oregon Law Land and Water Alliance, which is a 501c3 group here centered in the Sisters area. And I think most of you folks have heard me weigh in before, either in writing or through oral testimony. And I should add that my address is P.O. Box 579, Sisters, Oregon, 97. I'm drawing a blank now.
759.
It's the same as yours.
759, mine, yes.
Yeah.
I know that number.
So my biggest concern is biggest concerns are twofold. One is water and the other is destination resorts. We don't really say that much in terms of water issues in this plan. I was hoping for better. When I submitted my testimony in Bend at the Bend hearing, I suggested that what we had in front of us was a good start, but there was more work to be done in terms of conservation of water and frankly, policing of water, because there's more than a little, and I think all the commissioners already know this, there's more than a little cheating going on out there in the countryside in terms of water use and abuse. And there's really no enforcement mechanism. And as human nature being what it is, if you don't enforce your rules, people are going to decline to follow them because there are no consequences. So I still think this plan needs some language about enforcing water use rules. And I'm not going to say anything more about it than that. I don't know if you guys are going to go there this time, but that really needs to happen if we're going to get serious about what we do about water issues in this county. The other issue that concerns not only me, but Olawa is destination resorts. And I saw in the handouts today that you're proposing making some changes in the destination resort section, policy 11.7.4. And I'd ask you to look at those again. Some of them don't even make grammatical sense, but I think we're missing an emphasis on the need to be critical advocates for other uses of water other than just going to feed a never-ending chain of destination resorts. They're gross in terms of the amount of water that's required to take the desert and turn the desert into greens and fairways.
Question, I mean, a future destination resort doesn't have to have a golf course, so why, I mean, why would you say it has?
I can't think, yeah, I agree with you. They don't have to have a golf course, but I can't think of one that doesn't
Yeah,
because,
but that's the past, I mean, so,
but let me just finish if I could. The only way you really make money on a destination resort is by putting in a golf course and selling lots surrounding the golf course. And so that the golf course area around your house is watered and cared for by somebody else. And that's really not sustainable here in the desert anymore. We're in the high desert and we really got to start responding as if we realize that the water table is dropping. There's no question about that. The Water Resources Department tells us that, as well as the well owners in this part of the country. So I really think those two areas need more focus as we go forward. One is water use and the provisions under our comprehensive plan for policing water use, as well as restricting it as it currently provided. And secondly, I think the time for destination resorts in Central Oregon has passed. We have many more destination resorts here in the high desert than any other county in the state. And I don't think we need more. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Oh,
Judge.
go ahead.
yeah, I just another question, so, what does policing water look like? Who would do that? What rules are we implementing?
I think you'd have to define a policing force, whether it's the Water Resources Department. They're currently not staffed for that. There's a water master. There used to be ditch riders. I don't know if we have ditch riders anymore.
I actually had,
Irrigation districts do, yeah.
I had someone call me and they thought someone was abusing their privilege, so I called the water master and he almost immediately went and checked on it and said, no, they are actually following it. So it is possible to do that. And, you know, as the person in the middle, I was really happy that he checked on it.
I'm really happy to hear that too. That's the first good news in that area I've heard. We all have neighbors that have ponds that aren't permitted. They've just been filled with domestic well water. That happens. It's common. And nobody does anything about it. And it's about time we looked into that and to find a way to attack that problem.
So you're asking us to put in a policy to create the water police department? I mean, because
I'm not
the state
asking,
does water, we
I'm
don't
not-
have any
I'm not
rules or
asking,
regs or anything.
no, I'm not asking you to do that. We do have, I forget the name of it now, a nuisance abatement, code and some degree of enforcement here already. And if I were sitting where you're sitting, I'd look carefully into whether it would be possible to extend that jurisdiction or else work with the Water Resources Department to say, hey, how do we do a better job of making sure that our water uses, particularly our exempt water uses, our users are actually following the rules?
Which gets into metering domestic wells.
And
Yes,
I would
legislate.
I would absolutely love to have a meter put on my well and see, so I could measure monthly how much I was using and look for additional ways to cut back. We live on 20 acres and we've cut back from the permitted amount, a half acre around the house, to much less than that now, less than a quarter acre. And we've been trying to make things fire resistant at the same time, because those both can be done at the same time. But I'd suggest to you, and I think you know this already,
Well, it's a legislative discussion though, so.
right?
I would think that, yeah, I mean, if we want a partner to ask the legislature for monitoring domestic wells, that's an ask. But to ask the county to go do something that's not in our domain, that's a disconnect.
I'm not
That's
asking,
why I'm discussing. it.
yeah, I'm not asking you to do that. I would suggest that it is within your domain. But I'm not suggesting that it would be prudent to take a big giant step in that direction as a county. I think it's a bigger problem than a county.
Good, just wanted back and
But-
forth a little.
All right,
But it
thank
is-
you.
But it is absolutely something that your county government can lead on, having those discussions with the legislature, with the Water Resources Department to determine what we can do that actually would be effective to help address declining groundwater levels. And I'm trying to do just that.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. We appreciate you being here and thank you for coming to Sisters to hear us. We usually have to go to Bend, so this is a real privilege for us.
I thought
Thank
it was
you.
a privilege for me too.
There you go.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I know where you live.
Yeah, oh.
Holmes Road, right?
Somewhere there, yes.
Yeah.
I'm always out there working when I'm not here. Yes, we have Rodney Cooper next. And if anyone else wants to speak, we do need a blue form filled out, please.
Yeah, Rodney Cooper, 69274 Stetson, Sisters, Oregon, 97759. And I just wanted to speak just a moment. I don't know too much about some of the topics you're speaking about, but as far as the mule deer, I don't see them as a species that is not a durable species. In fact, the former speaker talked about they migrate all the way to Idaho and back. So, and the other thing is, he mentioned something about having contiguous zonings for them rather than spot zoning. And I've never seen a deer paying attention to property lines ever in my life, including gardens. So they have fawns in my yard every winter, and it doesn't, I don't think that let me skip ahead here for a second. He mentioned that 30 or 35 years ago, there's been a decline ever since then. And that's when they quit allowing hunters to control the cougar populations. And then you put on top of that, you've brought the wolves into the area. So I think that we're probably barking up the wrong tree when we're trying to think that something to do with the land is the problem when it's really predators. And cougars can kill a deer a week for food. But when you add wolves to the equation, what happens, the wolves will come and take that away from that cat. And so that means he's got to kill 2 or 3 to feed itself and the wolves. So we need to consider that there's a bigger picture here than just land use type situations. So that was what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Rodney.
Mr. Cooper, I just wanted to share that the state of Oregon, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife is doing a mule deer plan right now.
Right.
They came here to Central Oregon and did a pretty in-depth presentation on their analysis of the reasons that mule deer populations are declining in some places, and they emphasize the same factors that some of the speakers here today have emphasized. That
Well, that is true. And I
that
spoke
deer
at that
are-
meeting, Mr. Chang, because I sat there and listened to all the thing. There's the cougar thing. And then that was set aside because they can't do anything about that because of the state law. So they said, we can't do anything about that. And they left that premise completely out of the picture for the rest of the conversation.
No,
so-
they acknowledged there was vehicle collisions. They
Right.
acknowledged there was predation. They acknowledged there was poaching. But the really important thing that I think that they emphasize with that is that the foundation is food. And deer do not have access to food when it is converted to subdivision, when it is converted and fenced, when it's converted to pavement, when it's fenced off and they can't get to it. Basically the kind of like overarching message there was it's about food and it's about habitat.
Mhm.
And
You are going to have a hard time convincing me that that the problem is food for them until we change some things about the predators, because you can't, if you're doing science, you can have a whole bunch of variables. You're going to have to
there are.
face up to the fact that,
there are-
yeah, if you're going to do a true test, you can only have one variable.
But
And
the thing
the
is that-
variable that is being ignored is the fact that there's an overabundance of predators. So you don't know for sure if the food is the problem.
Well, what they explained was when a deer is not well nourished, can't run away from predators as fast, can't get across the road as fast.
And a
hangs out
predator
in
that's
places
eaten
where
by,
poachers can find
yeah,
them.
I heard all that stuff before, but a predator's been eaten, can't nourish itself either. So I think you guys have it flipped upside down. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, I'm
According-
just
right.
saying that what your explanation is in conflict with the state's leading wildlife biologists.
That's called an agenda.
I just wanted to say something because I
It's
did
called an agenda.
I did research on the deer and it was actually 1,100 in the Deschutes County. And I personally know that because the giant buck that had been in part of my neighborhood community was killed last July. You know, big buck, there he was mowed down on Edmondson Road. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. But the other thing that Gary Lewis brought out was the fact that, you know, we have 5 million extra juniper trees now that have spread all over in the last 80 years. And those juniper trees take over what the bitter brush, and that's actually diet for the deer. So I'm hoping more people take out junipers and actually nourish the bitter brush so that that's a great diet for them.
Yeah.
And go slower. Please go slower. So do we have anyone else that wants to say anything? Oh, what about online, Stephen? Doreen, thank you for joining us. Please unmute yourself. And you do have 3 minutes plus.
Oh, good afternoon, commissioners. I
Good
missed you. I missed you when you were in Bend. I had other stuff. I'm thrilled to see you're planning on improving meaningful engagement. Oregon's land use planning goal #1 clearly spells out how to meaningfully engage the community and youth. The award-winning 2040 engagement shows you can excel at public inclusion, and I'm looking forward to you including schools and colleges in environmental justice, land use protections, quality of life improvement, and pollution abatement. Our hard times require intentional prudence with water and EFU. When they froze the banks in the Great Depression, the people in communities who had small farms fared much, much better. Now on to airports, which are expanding operations thousands of percentage points, harming forests, deserts, habitats, air, and EFU, using vast amounts of water, culling huge numbers of birds, polluting farms, possibly even waterways and wells, while poisoning and damaging flora and fauna with the addition of hearing damage, which means the difference between life and death in wildlife. Bend Municipal Airport especially, but also other airports in the region and county appear to be subverting public involvement by piecemealing changes through its planning grants and having only aviation benefactors on airport planning boards. The named community members and reps are direct benefactors of the airports. This stands in violation of Oregon's land use public engagement goals and best practices. It appears you're working toward it, but please include an overlay in dial of known noise and air pollutants before accepting any planning documents. Please require full impact analysis, which spells out resident and citizen quality of life impacts from water to open spaces to pollution to noise to traffic, etc. Adverse health and quality of life issues drain community resources. It harms education and institutions. It reduces productivity while greatly increasing violence and dementia. Central Oregon road and air traffic have greatly increased and both create pollution and noise, which adversely impacts health and quality of life. Noise and pollution impacts must be named, mitigated, and monitored with clear expectation of enforcement, which is agreed to. Yeah, as you know, it's just been insufferable out here from both road noise and the increase of the airports. And there's been nobody protecting our community. So, and other people I've talked to in Redmond and Sisters are feeling the same. So please protect the community. And I'm look forward to you, including the colleges. They up in Seattle, they did a really amazing job. It's worth replicating. You know, they monitored and they found out how to protect the community a little bit through some HEPA air filters and some other things. But yeah, I think we need noise barriers and some protections and reconsidering how important this much aviation is. You know, when you're 4 jobs per hangar is not legitimate. And so the metrics I think need to be revisited. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen, for joining us today. Thank you for your timely remarks. I appreciate that. Stephen, do we have anyone else? Yes, please. If you are on Zoom and you would like to testify, you need to raise your hand and then Stephen will recognize you. Do we have anyone else? Please raise your hand. There's a little button to do that. Yes, everyone. Okay. I know.
Okay.
Do we see anyone? What about anyone? Is there anyone calling in? No.
Said she wanted to testify earlier, but she didn't, I haven't seen her hand raised, so you can maybe call on her to see if she. Oh, yeah, she just raised it.
Oh, she did. Okay, Morgan. Morgan Greenwood, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Excellent.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. My name is Morgan Greenwood. I am the Vice President of Government Affairs with Central Oregon Builders Association. I sincerely apologize for not being there in person this afternoon. I'm currently on the highway right now and was hopeful that I would be able to make it in time. In the interest of time, I will simply say that in coordination with a few other Deschutes County organizations, including Deschutes County Farm Bureau, Central Oregon Builders Association submitted a packet of recommendations that we would like to see incorporated into the comprehensive plan. In particular, we are looking for the ability to reclassify non-commercially viable agriculture land to facilitate the development of housing. This would, of course, enhance the county's housing goals, as well as provide strongly needed housing for communities in Deschutes County. To facilitate that, we are requesting that the Community Development Department implement a fee-based pre-application meeting. This helps expedite the review time for housing that could otherwise be inhibited by other needs that other agencies or requirements that other agencies such as irrigation districts, et cetera, could require. A paid pre-application meeting helps streamline the review time generally and eliminates surprises that may come up after an applicant has submitted a land use application. Finally, I do just want to note that there is an element under the Goal 10 housing production section that indicates that we would not like to see that surplus county land be used for workforce or affordable housing development. I simply want to take the opportunity to clarify that we are not requesting that surplus county land within city limits be used exclusively for workforce or affordable housing development. We recognize, of course, that not every site is going to be appropriate for housing, and that there may be a higher and better use for the county to utilize that land. So we don't mean to imply that county land within city limits should not be utilized for housing, simply that it not be utilized for housing at the expense of a greater opportunity. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and thank you for coming to Sisters, the city where I live and raise my family, and I apologize again that I can't be there in person with you.
And thank you, Morgan, for your timely statement. You had a second to spare. You could have actually talked longer, and you have submitted something, I believe is what you said. So we will look for that in the record.
Morgan, could I just ask you about, I guess whether there's some kind of underlying ratio in that last comment that you just shared with us? I mean, I can think of a number of discounted land sales, or in a couple of cases, land contributions that the county has made to affordable housing projects in Redmond, in Bend, and in Sisters, and in Lapine in the last couple of years. And I'm wondering whether any of those caused alarm or concern, or whether there's just kind of a general desire that not all the land is allocated out to affordable housing projects.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Chang. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify. I think it's just a general recognition that not every site is appropriate for housing. That has largely to do with the safety and health of the residents of affordable and workforce housing. It's important that workforce and affordable housing be integrated into surrounding neighborhoods, and that they're also close to other urban amenities. And it's simply a recognition that not all county land is in close proximity to helpful and safe and desired community amenities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else care to speak online on Zoom? Please raise your hand so Stephen can recognize you. Nicole, do you see anyone else up there? And there's no one on the phone then, correct? No phone. Okay. It was either in person or Zoom today. All right. Well, we're after 4. Go ahead, Nicole.
All right. So with that, sounds like that concludes the public hearing for today. So now the board has a few options for how to proceed next. You could choose to continue the hearing to a date certain, close the oral portion of the record, leave the written record open to a date certain. As a reminder, that staff's recommendation to keep the written record open for 30 days, but close the oral portion of the record. Or you have the option to close the oral and written record and schedule deliberations, or close the oral and written record and begin deliberations. So I look to the board for direction.
I believe we have a lot more to research, print out, and analyze before we, I think, and perhaps maybe someone today realizes they want to send in another letter. So I think I like your idea of keeping it open for 30 days, the record until May 30th. And then if we are submitting anything, it must be in 2 weeks, May 14th.
Excellent.
Do I support, closing the oral portion of this, the record, and then leaving the written record open by the dates mentioned.
I'm still disappointed that we didn't do any evening public hearing opportunities. I mean, I guess I'd like to ask my fellow commissioners, if we're going to hold the written record open until the 30th, would there be any interest in offering it one evening public hearing opportunity for people?
Did the planning commission hold evening meetings?
Yes, Madam Chair, the Planning Commission held 3 evening meetings,
Okay, all right.
public hearings.
Thank you. That's kind of what I thought. So they had 3 of them at night. So if we had last year?
The public hearings were, yes, in 2023, so October 26th, November 14th, and December 10th. I believe.
Right, I think that's a,
And then the planning commission didn't necessarily translate all the input that they got into the recommended comprehensive plan language. I mean, there was a whole lot of reinterpretation and kind of loading of the draft document with planning commissioner policy preferences that happened. So, I think there would be a good reason to hold an evening public hearing, but I'm just one vote, so.
Well, so you think there's a group of people that would come to our evening meeting that wouldn't be able to participate in the written record? I'm trying to understand.
No, I just think that there's people who would like to express themselves directly to the commissioners, and be able to see our reactions and have the opportunity to go back and forth a little bit like we've done today with people who offered public comment. But again, I'm just one commissioner, so if there's not support for that from the other commissioners, then I'll
you know what, they can always. Yeah. What?
So you're voting we should have it, you're saying?
Well, for one thing.
No.
No.
Yeah, let's.
So I didn't plan on 9 o'clock in the morning going into bed.
not always helpful to people who have jobs. Unfortunately, don't have one, so I can't.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I'm available. I'm here for the people. It's not like I'm trying to say no. I mean, you're backing out faster than, you know, you proposed it. So do you want to do that in the next week or two or?
Well, it has to be in like the next week.
I mean, I don't mind.
We would need to, I mean, you need to give adequate public notice before it happened. So I don't think in the next, I think a week out is probably too quick, but.
Yeah, it has to be noticed and it would have to be noticed tomorrow for next week. Yeah. And then we have the whole week before Memorial Day for budget. So that's 4 days there. What do you think?
Just wondering, since it's a continued public hearing, you may not need to read notice. This serves as the notice, and then the department, if you chose to do so, the department would then publicize to the greatest extent possible. So possibly, as I would suggest, the earliest it would be maybe Wednesday, May 8th, is that right? Yeah.
I mean, when I said I thought a week was too soon, it was not just for kind of formal public, public notice, but I mean, people need to know that there's going to be an evening public meeting they want to go to a couple of weeks in advance before they can integrate that into their schedule.
Well, so, yeah, I mean, I'm all around the county every day and I haven't found anybody that feels like they're yearning for this. So I would see this as an opportunity for interested parties to tell their friends and family to come testify about something. So, I mean, is this a special purpose or, I mean,
Well, I've heard from a whole lot of people who said that they went and they provided input to the planning commission and then they don't feel like the draft document.
okay. So this is
reflects
a second round for some folks that want to sway our opinion or see our response to their request.
Yeah, they want to see that the input that they provided to the planning commission actually was carried through, not just.
So if one person comes in and says something very passionately, we're supposed to follow that?
No, just let give people a meaningful opportunity to speak to their commission,
A second time?
to their commissioners.
Oh,
First.
okay.
May 15th would be, I mean, I'm just trying to think of
Yeah.
dates that
Yeah.
the board's already meeting, that we may have an open evening, if it's the will of the board.
I'm available. I was just trying to get clarity.
I know that next,
I mean, if
May
I
8th,
am,
our meeting is going to be quite extensive. It's the RV issue is on that agenda.
On the 8th, May 8th, I think that's right.
Well, that's what Brenda told me because,
Right.
yes, because we probably might not have a meeting on Monday because there's an AOC meeting. And then we were also invited to the safety building in Redmond in the afternoon for the groundbreaking, but the AOC meeting's from 1 to 4. So of course, there's 3 things at once.
I'd be available at 5 or 6, whatever we want.
What day?
The 8th. I mean, it'd be a
Oh,
long day, but that's fine.
8th or the 15th, whichever, I mean, if the board.
The 8th would be better
I
than
think
the
the 5th
15th.
would be better, 15th would be better. Just again, because for people to actually, working people to actually plan to get to something, it's good for them to have a couple weeks' notice.
Well,
I mean, there's also, if we have a Monday, May 13th Board of Commissioners meeting, then that's already an afternoon meeting and just roll into the evening for a couple of hours.
And if I may, on May 13th, you have the courthouse
dedication?
dedication at 1 o'clock. So you could just have one meeting that begins, for example, at 4 o'clock and then the hearing at 5. It's up, I mean, it's just.
Depending on the
if the-
agenda
if-
details. So,
exactly.
and that's at 1. Okay.
uh,
All right. So we could either do the 8th or the 13th, I guess.
At the stroke awareness event.
Which one? Oh,
Randy Travis that night,
the 13th? That's right.
What time does that start?
5 o'clock.
So that's, okay. And I have something the 16th, 17th, and 18th. Those nights. So,
That 15th is available.
I can't do 4 nights in a row. I would prefer to do either the
Well, for the
14th,
8th, I mean, 1
8th
week,
or the
if
14th.
people who have opinions, they got a week notification.
Yeah, that's normally what goes into our notice. So,
Well, I'd like to give people a real opportunity, but
Well, this is an opportunity
Let's
that
keep 'em
they
on the
didn't
8th then.
have. So the 8th, we'll
So-
just have a long day the 8th.
Sure. So just wanted to repeat back. So it sounds like we've landed on an evening
We'll just-
hearing.
Yeah, in Bend, correct, at a regular
Right.
location?
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Bet. So let's hope we don't have,
I
a
don't
s-
support the 8th. I think it's too soon, but
Well, we don't,
well,
is
I-
there, yeah.
I think May 8th is fine.
I mean, if the written record is open until the 30th, I don't see why we can't take a little bit more time to give people a real chance to respond.
Because we do have our budget meeting week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the month of May. So, and there's a lot of other things going on.
So would you rather not have it? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm,
we
the
can
8th
either not
sounds
have
good,
it,
yeah.
or, yeah.
Well, giving people an opportunity to do something, but not enough time to actually plan it into their week means that no one will show up. So, I mean, I'd like to do it, but I think it's a waste of time to do it on the 8th.
But we'll find out.
So it sounds like May 8th is the decided upon date for a continued public hearing. So of course, that continues both the oral and written portions of the hearing. I will this afternoon draft a press release and try to get that posted ASAP on our social media channels and hopefully get some news coverage as well. I'll also send out an email blast to I think we have 500 or 40 so folks signed up for our email list as well. So I will get on that as soon as possible to encourage folks to attend.
Great, thank you.
So we have the date, we have the location, we just need the time for the
Yes.
continued public hearing.
So is 5 o'clock too early?
I would defer to the board. I think 5 p.m. is appropriate. The planning commission usually starts at 5:30.
5:30. Okay, so we can start at 5.
5 p.m. start time on May 8th.
Great.
Oh, go ahead, Will.
Will, is there a problem?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Your planning manager, Will Groves. I think if the target is to try to help people who are at their jobs, given the kind of the turnout that we've seen at these other hearings, which have been very limited, I think if we started at 5, it's gonna be over relatively quickly unless something very different happens. And so for people who work until 5, probably need to get a little bit of food in them to show up at this a later start time would
Well, we can offer food, remember? Isn't that what I said last week? We should have had food
had the
at
barbecue.
the Sun River one. I offered to do a barbecue at my house tonight, but
I just want to
Well,
acknowledge
how
that
about
we've had
5:30?
in other circumstances.
5:30.
Pushed back to 5 o'clock even because people are, not everybody, including myself, gets out right at 5.
So 5:30.
5:30.
5:30 is fine.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks, Will, for that.
Dialing it.
Common sense.
Yeah, and that will be a hybrid hearing as well. So
Hybrid.
opportunity to participate virtually as well. Excellent. All right. Well, with that, we'll see you on May 8th at 5:30 p.m.
Yeah,
at the
so
Barnes
then,
and Sawyer Room.
just, other note, so as I say, I've got some notes, for the document also and some ideas percolating. One of them is, really kind of mentioning, so our section 36, the bottom edge of the county, and I think there's some words in there about it already, but it's that classic situation of rezoning resource land and non-resource land. But I would like to make a case for, we've got this area where there's 5 and 10 acre parcels. People are living on them already. Some people are. There's infrastructure, road infrastructure, transportation infrastructure is not, like there's no public right of way between the main road and some of these private properties. And we've got existing dwellings, unpermitted structures and infrastructure that is a constant battle back and forth. So this is advocating to my fellow commissioners can we put some policy words in here that really kind of lean into this? So I'm not coming up with specific policy words today, but we've got an example of a place that I got to imagine in the late 80s, or the early 80s probably is when it was, late 79, 80, where the state was struggling over zoning. Like, okay, we're going to zone the whole state of Oregon. And all of a sudden there's this last, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10% that was just debatable. Well, yes, there's a tree there, but is it farm and farm? Yes, it's forest. Yes, there's a large lot here, but there's a lot of rocks and shallow soil. Is it really farming? But then at some point you just had to say, okay, we've been studying it for, 30 days or whatever would have happened. And they just stopped and like, well, when in doubt, resource land, we'll get back to it someday. we'll get back to it someday. And this is what the big look was about many years ago too. Well, let's get back to it. And it doesn't happen. We've got a place that I would just like to lean into. So I'm just making a case for maybe some words I'm going to put in the record for us to discuss.
Are you talking about South County's problems where we were hearing about all those illegal buildings?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
little
we
section
need-
of land that
we
was
need
zoned
to be-
F2.
Yes,
And the idea was maybe you could put a template dwelling in one place, but then that means none of the neighbors could put a house in. So then you can't have a house, but you can't have a septic system, and people are just doing it. And
Right.
we're constantly in code enforcement down there.
constantly.
So as I say, we're holding on to this for the purposes of environmentalism and whatever, but we've got places that probably could be rezoned reasonably. And there'll be opposition because some people live by that opposition. So we'll have that
We've
discussion.
tried that
Are
before.
these are the legacy rural residential areas that were zoned improperly?
Well, there's a case for that. There's,
Yeah, those
because it was already
6 areas.
platted before.
Or are you talking about something different?
This was an area that was zoned F2. It was platted before 1973 that people have always thought of as rural residential, but yeah, I don't know.
Is it, so those 6 legacy rural residential areas, is that,
Oh, I don't remember
that-
that terminology.
there was, you know, when
Probably.
the year before I became commissioner, there was an effort to do a blanket rezone of 6 kind of specific
6
areas
special areas.
that
and-
had been platted,
Is that the
with-
terminology?
Yes,
that had been,
that's it.
Yeah, so as I say,
was that what they were being called? Legacy rural residential? area? I
Right,
can't
yeah,
remember
it was part of the county's non-prime resource lands effort.
Right.
yeah, so
And
as I say,
I supported, you know, the county's effort to get, get flexibility from the state to blanket rezone those 6 spots on the map, those 6 areas. The state didn't grant us that. What we know is that people are able to do a parcel by parcel rezones. It is very expensive for them to do the soil analysis that is required. And I suggested that it would be a good investment for us as the county to do the soil surveys for them. Because when those properties get built on, and they get on our tax rolls as developed properties, the cost, a couple of tens of thousands of dollars of soil survey cost are going to be recouped very quickly. So, we can kind of fight with the state and argue, or we can just give a helping hand for those specific properties that we all believe are appropriate to be rezoned, and help them get it done.
Actually, we were threatened that we were going to be sent to prison by Friends of Oregon. Remember, were you there? Oh, yeah, that was a great day.
Yeah,
So,
when
yeah,
I
they
said-
weren't very happy with us.
When I said we, I meant we.
You weren't there, I think. We were,
No, I wasn't there yet.
yeah, we were threatened to be sent to.
so yeah, as I
prison.
say, it just come
and
around.
if I was there, maybe it wouldn't have turned into a big hoopla brawl drama. Because what I'm suggesting is a practical way to just get it done.
Okay.
Well,
well,
I'm gonna try to propose some words and we'll see how we land it. That's all.
Good. Thank you so much. All right, so let's talk to our constituents as within the room. Thank you all for
Great.
coming tonight, or today, this afternoon.
Yeah. it's
And if you
light out.
really want to come back, it's the 8th, remember? Wednesday night, the 8th, and it will start at 5:30, and I don't know if we'll have any food or not, but we might. Maybe, yeah, somebody will make pizza.